Rick.
Here.
Your.
Yeah.
Okay. Public participation. This is the first opportunity. Well, I take it back. This is the opportunity at the work session that we invite the public to address the commission. If you would like to do so, we ask that you come to the microphone, give us your full name and your residential address, and you abide by our 3-minute rule. All right.
It's like somebody wants to come.
Yeah, I don't see
No
anybody.
Let people
Yeah.
on stage.
All right. Yeah. We will move on to the Mount Clemens Brownfield presentation. Mr. Shipman.
While we're waiting for Samantha to load that up, I know I added the presentation to your packet. Brownfields are not something that come along every day, especially for the city of Mount Clemens. And I know a few of you have been through the process. I know some haven't, so I thought it'd be great to start with kind of a Brownfield 101 presentation. Samantha is our Brownfield consultant. And so we've been approached by a couple different developments for Brownfield. And I know in the past, going through this, with all of our non-taxable property problems, right away the commission usually goes, oh boy, I don't know that we can do this, right? And so we want to be a partner. We want to be able to work with people and have them come in and take on some of these developments. So there's a lot of different sharing agreements you can do with these brownfields. And that's why I wanted to have Samantha kind of look at these different options to see if one of them would work for us. And it looks like one that you're familiar with, the municipal services agreement, will fulfill that. So tonight we're going to go through kind of Brownfield 101, and then we're going to go over a possible brownfield that you could entertain and what that would look like.
Is there a specific project you're thinking about? I know Victory
Brian.
Brownfield, right?
Um,
The new building?
The old, the Victory Insight is, that we already approved that brownfield, yeah.
Is there another?
Yep, so tonight we're gonna go over a little bit about an Alro Steel brownfield, the possibility of one, so.
So does somebody come to us and say, this is a possibility, or we dreamt this up?
No, they usually come to us. Usually they'll come to Brian's office in community development. Sometimes they'll go through the mayor or the city manager, but usually it's through Brian's office. You know what, if you just do the Windows key K, it will pop that up, and then it will, if you do, can you do Windows K, and then you should see it on your screen. You should grab this TV, and then I will allow it, and it should pop up. Are you on our guest Wi-Fi too?
I don't think I'm on any Wi-Fi.
Guest, there's no password. So if you grab guest and you get on the Wi-Fi and then you do the Windows K, we should be able to get you on there.
I'm sorry.
You love technology, right?
Usually.
Usually.
No, we don't love it.
Why?
No. When we don't love it.
Yep. Wait, I think this is
Okay,
like.
gotta go.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Aha!
Take Sam's son.
We got it.
bad
You got
device.
it? There we go.
Oh, beautiful. Look at that.
Gonna say.
So you just needed to threaten the cord.
Yeah, I just threatened to plug the cord in, and that's what happens.
So thank you so much for the introduction. Again, Sammy, Samantha. I am a consultant with Fleece and Vandenbrink. I've been doing brownfield economic development work for about the last decade. And we've got about 15 other communities that we serve all across the state of Michigan. So the goal of tonight is just to brief the council and do like a quick brownfield 101. There's another 201 that doesn't cost any money that I can do later, but I really wanted to communicate how the process works and why utilizing brownfield TIF is an important tool for your community. And as City Manager Shipman also said, there are different ways that we can be creative, including municipal services agreements, pass-throughs of the taxing dollars, et cetera. So please feel free to interrupt me at any time, ask any questions. I'm here to be your resource. So we'll go quickly through kind of the overview of TIF, what value this brings to the community, the powers, roles, and responsibilities of your BRA, and then I'll touch a little bit on administration and compliance for the BRA. It's one thing to get a plan approved. It's another that plan starts capturing, and you're making sure that the dollars that are being captured are going to reimburse the developer for the correct activities. So really, brownfield is such a fun tool, in my opinion. Maybe it's nerdy, but you can use this to create all sorts of things. If we want it to support what's going on, like your master plan, you can help attainable housing. I hate this slide because I have to press every single thing. Remind me to change that. Originally, brownfield was passed in 1996 as Public Act 381 to address legacy contamination concerns in our manufacturing sites to promote an adaptive reuse. In 2023, the governor made it a priority to address Michigan's housing shortage. A study came out that Michigan is short 155,000 housing units. And our legislators were like, all right, they were tasked with creating something to address this. And they ended up choosing to plug housing into the brownfield legislation. And so now housing development qualifies for brownfield incentives. And that really is targeted to achieve that missing middle, where that targets 80 to 120% of the area median income. It's not low income. I think something like 120% of the average median income in Michigan is over $100,000 for a household of 4 people. And you can look at each project through its own unique lens. For instance, if there's a development coming in that needs water sewer extended to that site, and maybe that was something that was in the capital improvement plan for the community, and you're like, all right, maybe we'll push this up a bit, you can then potentially tie that into the brownfield plan and reimburse yourself for that cost. So there are so many different ways that brownfield can be creative. So this is my fun little slide on the value of TIF. So at the time a plan is approved by City Council, Council or Commission? Commission, thank you. It's better than me calling the township a city multiple times in a meeting. That was recorded.
You get called council all the time.
I believe it. So at the time the brownfield plan is approved by City Commission, the base value is frozen, but not frozen in the respect like a tax abatement is, where that millage rate is set, but whatever the value of that property is at the time it's approved becomes the base. And then any of the growth that is created from the development is able to be reimbursed to the developer for the activities that are identified in the brownfield plan. So they're creating the additional value on that property and then get to recapture that. And that goes to the school operating tax, the state education tax, your local millages, and the county millages as well. So you're taking from the other taxing jurisdictions to keep that money in the community for projects. And then after the plan terminates or expires, then that property goes back on the tax roll at that significant increase in value, and all of the taxing jurisdictions see that benefit.
Just one quick question.
Yeah, please.
So for the most part, they don't pay, like with the Victory Inn, they won't pay any taxes until the expiration, or
They will
do
pay
they?
their taxes.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
so that project has been approved. So the developer and the owner will pay their taxes on an annual basis or biannual basis. And prior to any increment being reimbursed to the developer, they have to submit a reimbursement request. And that's governed by the reimbursement agreement that really is the legally binding mechanism that, says, all right, this brownfield plan was approved on this date, and here are the kind of the terms and conditions in which the developer will be reimbursed. And that includes a significant packet of information. So we would want to see all the invoices, all the proof of payment. We want to substantiate that you have, in fact, paid your contractors and subcontractors. And then we would bring that reimbursement request to the BRA to certify that amount. So I would go through and do a cost reconciliation. So the brownfield plan really operates as our not to exceed maximum amount. So say we approve a brownfield plan for $1 million, but only $700,000 of activities are completed and certified by the BRA. Then we would only reimburse that $700,000 and only what is available. So it's a pretty risk-adverse incentive piece because you do have that check and balance, right? Like we go through everything, we make sure it is aligned with what's in the plan and statutorily allowable. But also there's an onus on the developer and to be pretty accurate with what we believe our post-development taxable value is going to be. Because if that value is not created, then there might not be enough TIF created from the project to reimburse the developer.
I see.
And we're not obligated
Correct.
after, if it's not generated. right?
Yes. Yep.
And just to be clear, like, for the Victory Insight, again, as
Sure.
the example, we will continue receiving what we were receiving in
Correct.
regular property tax income.
Yes.
The TIF reimbursement comes from any increase in property value
Yes.
above that.
Above that, yep. So there's no loss, with brownfield. There's only foregoing future growth for a specified period of time. Yeah. So I had mentioned that typically these were for contaminated sites. So there's a couple different ways that a property can qualify for brownfield incentives. So first and foremost, we have contaminated. If a building is functionally obsolete, blighted, a historic resource, if that property is adjacent to contiguous, so say we've got a contaminated site, the site next door is going to be part of that overall development, but isn't contaminated, we can qualify that as adjacent to contiguous because it benefits the overall project. Anything that is tax reverted, land bank owned, transit oriented, or housing property. So we have our top two state agencies that get involved, and then our newest one, MISTA. So when you approve a brownfield plan, that is the local support. So you're saying that we support this project and the use of the increment created to support these development activities. But we still have what needs to go to the state of Michigan, which is an Act 381 work plan. And really, it is just a brownfield plan on steroids. If our brownfield plan is 30 pages, this is 300. And it has all of the activities listed out. And what the state is responsible for approving is the 18 school operating tax mills and the 6 state education tax mills. And so Eagle, it's only one document, but these one or two agencies typically would be reviewing it and saying that this plan can be supported using those mills. Eagle's only going to look at environmental activities, so if there's any due care activities or environmental response activities on that site, MEDC would look at demolition, abatement, site prep, infrastructure, and some private infrastructure. Now, there are asterisks on the MEDC one with site prep and infrastructure. I believe you are a core community, so this doesn't apply to you, but does apply to some communities. If you're not a core community in Michigan, then you cannot be reimbursed with state taxes for site prep and infrastructure. But there's no stipulation like that with MISTA. So MISTA supports infrastructure, site preparation, demolition and renovation of existing buildings, temporary relocation costs, acquisition costs, and gap financing. The temporary relocation costs and acquisition costs are only on rehab projects. I have not come across that in my career just yet, but this housing TIF is relatively new. And then gap financing is for homes that are reserved for individuals or households earning that 80 to 120% AMI. So in that instance, if we're looking at a rental product, MISTA publishes a control rent, And then we have our project rents. So we look at what the published control rent is as compared to what the project will be rented, or what that unit will be rented for, and figure out what that gap may be over the affordability period. So if we have 4 units that are, $2,000 for a period of 10 years, $2,000 per month for a period of 10 years, then we would look at what that gap is, and the developer could be reimbursed for that. Same thing with a for sale home. If that home is being sold kind of under what the market says, then the cost to construct the house and what it sold for can be reimbursed to the developer. And the same thing goes with this gap financing with respect to reimbursements. So if it's a housing project, then the developer is going to need to substantiate to the BRA on an annual basis that their rents were reserved, those units were reserved for individuals making below 120% of the area median income. And we will go through and qualify that on an annual basis. And they would also have to certify the income of those individuals through MISHDA. So there's continued compliance with both kind of like the cost to construct and install the infrastructure, but also that gap. So we've touched on this a little, or this is kind of what the value of having your own brownfield redevelopment authority means for your community. You're able to capture administrative dollars, so this is a set amount over the life of the plan that comes back to you for staff, consulting, legal time associated with preparing and managing these plans. And then we always try and show in a brownfield plan what we call money into the local brownfield revolving fund, or LBRF. And we typically show that as 5 years after the developer is reimbursed, you're able to continue to capture for those 5 years and use that for additional development projects in your community. Now, the projects need to fall under statute, but what that can look like is you then have your own brownfield site assessment program. You now have your own brownfield grant and loan program. You can now offer gap financing on these projects. So you can become a true partner with dollars that would have left your community otherwise, because you're capturing from the external jurisdiction. So that's a really valuable tool. If there's not many projects, in the pipeline, or if we've got, ones that are just being approved and we don't want to wait over those 5 years or till the plan is expired, there's other ways that we can look at that. I've had communities typically have a 10% administrative capture. We're like, hey, we want to capture 5% for admin and 5% into this local brownfield revolving fund, because we want to populate that fund sooner rather than later. I worked with the City of Northville on the Northville Downs redevelopment project, and we structured that to be that the first $700,000 of increment, the first $300,000 of increment goes into the local brownfield revolving fund. And then after the developer's reimbursed the final $700,000 to give them $1 million. The reason that was structured that way is because the city was losing its farmers market and needed to find a new location and was going to have to do some site assessment and acquire a new property. So that was, kind of a creative way to make sure that the city will have a space for their farmers market.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So otherwise, would that money have gone to the city of Northville,
That money would have gone to the developer.
to the developer?
Yep.
So
Yes.
the developer gave up?
They gave up the first $300,000. So the first $300,000 of value that they created goes into this local brownfield revolving fund. And then anything beyond that can be reimbursed to them.
Interesting.
So every one of these could be different.
Absolutely, yeah, yes. I wish, and I'm gonna say that, every project that you're like, this one's gonna be straightforward, then it's not. But that, you can be very creative. Also too, I think we came into this with Victory. Was that in the DDA?
Yep.
So in that instance, you have an interlocal agreement between your DDA and your Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, because they're two TIF mechanisms. And your DDA has the first right of capture because it was established prior to this brownfield. So then we have two bases, right? We're going to have the base value of that property the year it was put in the DDA, and then we're going to have a base value of that property with respect to the brownfield. And then the DDA is going to transfer the increment on that. This is like Brownfield 201. We're off base, but that's okay. The DDA then transfers that to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority to reimburse the developer. So they can be nuanced, but it's fun. It's fun times. So again, the brownfield plan, that is the maximum amount. If there were an instance in which a development was in the field and maybe going to go over budget, they could come back and request an amendment. But if no amendment is requested, then that just becomes the maximum amount. I see that happen more often on environmental projects where we don't entirely know what's happening under the soil until we start digging things up. So it has to be amended if it's going to go over. The Act 381 work plan that comes after a brownfield plan, and that authorizes the use of state and school taxes. You do have the opportunity, and we see this being used a lot more just because of what is happening at the state with respect to economic development, is local-only plans, not only from a speed to market, but also, just kind of the path of least resistance. We know that construction prices aren't holding, and many of our companies have, contracts that they need to meet. Hey, we have to be up and running to meet the supplier's demand by this date. So we would pursue a local only in that respect. And then again, the reimbursement is going to be based on the actual costs incurred and the availability of TIF. So that creates an incentive for the developer to complete the project and limited risk to the community. The only time you would get into any significant level of risk is, say, it was a project where you were installing the infrastructure, right? And it was for this development, and you promised, you're going to be reimbursed for that, but then the project falls through. If we go back to the local brownfield revolving fund, then you could use this to incur the cost to get infrastructure to a priority site that you wanted to see redeveloped and kind of make that shovel ready for somebody and alleviate that upfront cost and proactively put a brownfield plan on that, so then you're first in line for that future reimbursement. I've seen that used in a couple of communities. And then we want to talk a little bit about a municipal services agreement. So again, there is a true cost to the community for supporting these projects, right? When somebody locks their keys in the car, your police still have to show up. If there's a fire, your fire department has to show up, right? So the way we look at those types of services is a way to make the city whole, or as close to whole as possible, for what it may be not receiving for the period of time in which the brownfield plan is in place. So ensures that your revenue is not reduced, creates a budget neutral position for the city, and then it helps, maintain the longevity of your brownfield program. One of the other things that can be looked at is a pass-through. So in a pass-through situation, that would be something where, say, the developer is being reimbursed 80% of the increment, and then the remaining 20% is going back to the taxing jurisdictions. I don't do that as often because what happens in that instance is the plan is prolonged, right? So we're just, the dollars don't change, but the length of time does. So that can take plans, statutorily plans can be up to 30 years. You do have the ability to limit the number of years. In the case of Northfield Downs, we limited that to 17 years. So if that project is stalled or doesn't, create the increment, it doesn't matter. After 17 years is when we're stopping it. So different ways to kind of slice and dice how everything is done. So the powers of a BRA, this is to create additional economic development opportunities in your community. Your Brownfield Redevelopment Authority is a recommending body, and then that has to come to, see, I had City Commission in here, I did go change it. And then come back to City Commission for a public hearing and a resolution of approval. And prior to that public hearing, there's a 10-day public notice period, and all of the taxing jurisdictions are informed and do have an opportunity to come speak. And again, you have the final say. The BRA can collect administrative capture and fund their local brownfield revolving fund, can make and enter into contracts. You have the ability to own, mortgage, lease, and convey property, accept grants and donations. Now, Eagle, well, their funding was also cut with this past round of budget cuts. They do have a grant and loan program, and that grant and loan program has to be managed by a local unit of government or a component unit of government. So if we had a project that had, say, $2 million in remediation, but we've only got an Eagle grant for $1 million, you could also find a way where, all right, maybe one is held by the city commission, the other is held by the BRA. So you can increase the availability of funds, but all of that has to be managed through the local government. And then you can invest money, borrow money, and issue bonds. And then study, develop, and prepare reports. Since the change in the legislation with the inclusion of housing, I have seen BRAs use some of their local brownfield revolving fund money to fund a housing study. MISTA went around and has created regional housing plans, but we know that every community has very specific and very diverse housing needs. So a lot of BRAs are getting kind of into that minutia as to what they truly need in this moment, so they can use that and go to the development community and say, you know, these are the types of projects that we'd like to support and see in our community.
One quick question.
Yeah.
So the BRA, there would be one for the entire city, or is there one for each project or each authority if there's like?
They would be project-specific plans. So Victory Inn, that is one plan that went before the BRA, the DDA, and then to commission. And then as new projects come in, they would each be individually approved plans.
But the
By
body
one
of
body.
BRA is one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But they approve different plans. Okay.
Yes. I don't know why the slide's still in there. Sorry. So getting a little bit into that ongoing compliance. There's annual reporting that goes into the MED Salesforce portal. So that's where we enter in what the TIF capture is, how much has been reimbursed or how much has been used for administrative purposes. And we also want to track within their investment, job creation, square footage that has been rehabilitated and activated, and also like how many feet of like public infrastructure have been installed. And that is Brownfield 101, like a lot of information condensed down. We can get into what happens after that plan is approved. I didn't bring an example reimbursement request because it's like this thick. But really wanted to talk, oh yeah.
Samantha, have there been any assessments done on municipalities in terms of how the BRAs impact the rate of development and in what specific areas?
No, but I love this. And I will go search for some. That would be interesting, yes.
I would really like to see that.
Yeah, you know, I think too, Cornerstone Alliance over on the west side of the state does a lot of those economic impact studies. And we recently did a project in partnership with them over in St. Joe about when you, like, how many dollars into your community does that investment return? So let me find that for you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, I like that. So we do have, you know, 2 potential projects that want to come before the BRA, so I thought it was a good time to come speak with you and kind of get everyone brought up to speed on how Brownfield works, what to expect. We do have Kirk from Fishbeck here, if you want to talk about your project in particular. Yeah?
I have another question.
Yeah,
If that's okay.
and I'll be here the whole night. Yes.
What would be a disincentive for a developer when it comes to BRA? I mean, I don't want to guess at it, I have some
Right.
ideas, but what would be
I think just if we're going after like state funding, just the time it may take.
the timing?
And, yeah, and making sure that there are accurate numbers, right? Because if you're in too early in a brownfield plan and you don't have those numbers figured out, you may end up having to come back and amend. I will also add, there's no statutory stipulation on when in the development process a plan can be approved. So you could be tasked with reviewing a brownfield plan prior to site plan approval, or vice versa. And the reason for that being is because the lending market is getting more and more stringent, especially when it comes to financing large development projects. And lenders are now wanting to see that TIF and that kind of approval prior to funding that project, and that may be getting funding to do some of those pre-development activities. So, and I go back to the risk, right? That's a question that comes up often. Like, what is the risk if you were to approve a brownfield plan without there being an approved site plan? And again, very limited, because if the plan doesn't happen, and we have, usually there's a 3-year construction timeframe that's put either in a development agreement or is definitely in a reimbursement agreement. If that doesn't happen, then it's in default and that goes back. So like you as the community weren't putting money into that project, it's just kind of tied up. Or the plan could be amended for somebody else if that developer was to bow out and sell the project. And it can be used as a really great marketing tool for redevelopment.
So the plan can be amended if they do run into
Yep,
some type
yep.
of difficulty or things.
The plan can be amended. We could also assign the TIF. I've seen that done a couple of times where a developer put together a brownfield plan, had it approved, had his site plan approved, and then ended up needing to walk away from the project for extenuating circumstances. And so he found a buyer, and he, even though that first developer was the one that incurred the cost to complete those activities, he assigned the future increment to that new owner of the property. And that's part of a business deal, right? Like, I always say, you can do this per your reimbursement agreement, and here's how. If that were to happen, the BRA would need to be notified. We'd need to amend the reimbursement agreement. So that wouldn't be without the BRA and the city commission's, blessing on it.
And then the BRA executes it, but for it to change, it comes back to commission,
Correct.
if that were to happen.
Yes,
Okay.
yep. It'll come back before you, of course. All right. So talk a little bit. Switch up.
Perfect. My name is Kirk Perschbacher. I'm a senior brownfield specialist at Fishbeck. This is my version of Sam's map with TIF. So we give the same presentations a lot.
I like yours better.
Before we get into the numbers and stuff, I have John Rumler, who's the with Arrow Steel, who's doing the project. So I figured he'd kick it off with just a little bit about it, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the details.
Thank you for the time today. My name is John Rumler with Alro Steel Corporation, and just wanted to give you a little bit of just an update on the project and that we've got at the old Gibraltar Trade Center. It's roughly a $60 to $70 million project between real estate and personal property. It'll probably initially have roughly 50 jobs with full employment at about 100 within several years. And the building footprint's about 250,000 square feet. I know we did submit a brownfield application back in 2024, and we expect occupancy roughly in second quarter of 2026. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or want some more detail.
How's it going so far?
Well, it depends. No, I'm just kidding. It's
So you didn't have a brownfield in place back then?
No, we submitted an application, and we were under the impression that it was, moving forward. But we hope to still work something out as it relates to the brownfield, so.
So you've been moving forward on your project, then without that?
Yes.
Yeah, and like Sam mentioned, there's cases where you can wait until the very end to start it, and some cases when you have to kind of get going in it. And the original brownfield plan was prepared in end of 24, or actually mid-2024, roughly $9 million in eligible activities, kind of based on primarily site prep. The building has, or the property itself, the soils are not suitable for the size of building. So about $5 million of that $9 million is helical piers that have to go into the building. And Alro needed to do the investment to get the property going to get it redeveloped. So, and there was a period of time with the city that brownfields were being reevaluated. It was going through the process. So kind of that's what happened between 24 and now. So now we're kind of looking at kind of that municipal services agreement too. That is something that can help the community and also help the developer because the costs are high when we're doing in redevelopment. So we just kind of wanted to kick it off, allow you guys to ask some questions. We're working with Sam and the team about what that municipal services agreement will look like. The original plan was submitted at 15 years for reimbursement. Obviously all these are negotiable facts. But yeah, the eligible activities we're estimating in total are about 9 million. With that municipal services agreement, I don't know if that will get fully reimbursed, and the developer understands that. It's just more kind of finding what works best for the community and the developer to kind of really hone in on that public-private partnership for this big of an investment on the property.
As it stands right now, is this at the Brownfield board, or?
We'll be taking it to them in the next
Okay.
couple of weeks. We wanted to have this meeting first.
Okay.
I think all they're asking from us today is to kind of inform us and then just to say, is this something that the city, is interested in pursuing, and not to vote necessarily, but just to say, is there a chance that it will go through the processes and pass and get the blessings of these boards, right, of the BRA and us. So, because as when in talking with Elro, when they first began the development, we said, our community is limited in some of the resources that we can do because of the 48% of our land being non-taxable, and so that is a really significant burden on our community. And so, and we've kind of been under the impression that brownfields kind of leave us, they just limit limit our revenue, right, on the properties that are taxable. And so we've always been hesitant to, really go after, because we didn't know that there were these creative ways to make the city at least whole in terms of, or closer to it, and closer to it. So now that we have gotten this information, and now we're looking at some of these projects going, oh, well, maybe these are significant projects, right, that we want to welcome. So we need to kind of take a look at this. So that's kind of they're not asking for an absolute today.
Correct. Appreciate the consideration.
But you're going to the board shortly, a couple weeks.
Well, the plan was created, but it didn't formally go in front of the Brownfield Authority yet, and it will be revised to allow for this municipal services agreement, whatever that kind of works out, so that the numbers are as accurate as possible and there's transparency across the board in the plan.
So you do want our take on it or our feelings about it before you go to the board? Because that's going to change things?
I don't think it's going to change things. We just wanted to make sure that we were having this conversation about Brownfield because of his benefit, and I think this is the first time we would be exploring a municipal services agreement in conjunction with that, and I also wanted to express different ways that Brownfield can be used creatively rather than just feeling like you're, forgoing for so long.
Okay.
Yeah, and part of that too is the BRA is the recommendation to council or commission to approve, excuse me. So if commission was going to 100% say no, it makes that conversation different versus the ability to talk about the project, look at how it can really benefit the community and the developer as well.
And a lot of times when developers are first coming in to the city, and just looking at a property to purchase, they come to the city manager. Sometimes they invite me, sometimes they invite Brian, whoever. If it's in the DDA, sometimes it's the DDA. And they just say, hey, we're thinking about these things, right? And, we're going to put a restaurant here, or it could be a hotel, it might be a whatever. I mean, they might have a laundry list of things that they could do. And Elro had much more of an idea of what they were going to do, but they, it was a very preliminary meeting, right?
Yeah, that was probably 21, 22, something like that.
Yeah,
It was a while ago.
I think it was
for
when you
sure.
first started.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was very, very early, and, I'm sure that the footprint of the building changed how many times between then, right?
Let's say more than several.
Exactly. So I mean,
Razors.
so,
Yeah, and,
yeah,
you know.
so, and we haven't met since, right? So
Right,
it's a, I mean, but I think they want you to know how things are going, and like you said, now it's kind of that opportunity to make sure you're on board, because you don't want to go to the brownfield and then everybody go, no.
We did the same thing with the Victory Inn project, right?
Right.
They actually came in before we went to the
Right.
Brownfield Authority, and we kind of went over the project, and though you can't vote, or, you know, you can kind of tell when you leave that meeting whether it's worth the effort to keep going. And so that's basically what we wanted to do again tonight with this, but I wanted you to have a good understanding, you know, with the brownfield and what these options are, because these are options that we've never explored before, right? And there's ways to use the brownfield that we've never done before. A lot of it's because we don't get that many. But
And one thing too with the eligible activities is, in order to make the development happen, the developer Alro had to pay for a lot of the public infrastructure. So they had about a 1.3 million in rerouting the storm sewer for the city as well. So that's a capital cost. Luckily, you guys didn't have to bear, which is great. And that was needed to get the project into. So the brownfield plan splits out all the different activities. We're just kind of going on the higher level, but that's one of the ones, along with those piers, are kind of the two biggest ones we have in the plan itself.
Actually, I have two questions. The first one is, can the brownfield reimburse for activities that happen before it was?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, we call it a look back, so it's just written into the plan, and we make sure that, you know, it all just abides by the plan, but yes,
Okay.
yes.
And then second, not toward any particular developer, but is their ability to fund it without using the authority considered by the Brownfield Authority or by us?
that'd be better, like,
Are you asking if there's another mechanism to reimburse for these costs outside of?
Like if they could, do we consider if the entity could cover these costs to build without using a brownfield
Sure,
development as a factor in the decision-making?
Yes, and, you know, my role as your consultant is to make you not have to read a 30-page brownfield plan, but really condense that down to a 2-3-page memo that goes over the plan, the project history, the eligible activities, the qualifications, and the ask, and, you know, help you, you know, give you the findings to make an educated determination about your support for a brownfield project.
That wasn't directed to.
No, sure, no,
Good question.
valid, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did look at other communities as well, and after our initial meetings, we felt, hey, this is going pretty well, and you know, that the seed was planted, I guess I would say, as far as the brownfield, and, you know, sometimes you do things on faith, right? So that was kind of what we did.
So where are you at right now in the plan? Halfway, maybe,
The building is well underway,
I thought.
yeah.
I mean, you're,
We're looking at occupancy.
it's more than faith at this point, you,
Yeah, no, it's what we're in. It's whether, you know, we're gonna be a good neighbor either way. But it's something that we had planned on when we budgeted this out, so. But we're looking at second quarter of '26, probably the building being completed.
Anybody else? Questions?
I mean,
Thoughts?
I'm certainly looking forward to seeing the actual numbers and stuff, and kind of what kind of plan you can come up with municipal service agreement, and what that would actually look like, because I've never seen one of those either. So I'm looking forward to seeing kind of the nuts and bolts of this, that 2-3 page thing that you're talking about. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Seeing,
Yes.
you know, but, you know, anytime people are willing to invest in the community, it's reassuring, and I'm inclined, generally speaking, to be supportive of that, while not committing to any particular vote at this time in a work session. I don't know, that's kind of my thoughts, and once I see the numbers, that's really probably going to be a driving factor in all of it, but given that you guys already have such sunk cost, I can understand wanting to, you know, get a feel for where we're at.
Well, and part of that, I think, some of especially some of the people who have been born and raised here, you'll understand the portion of the property that they purchased is the old Mount Clemens racetrack. And so you can imagine what that soil is from the oil and you unearthed cars, I understand, that were buried in the
there was
ground, some engines.
Crazy stuff.
So then they had to remediate and take the soil away, remove it, bring in better soil, and then the piers. So, I mean, there were some very unexpected.
Yeah, development costs were high, for sure, and we knew that going in, but it was, it was a very interesting history lesson reading the Phase 2, or the Phase 1 and the Phase 2, so.
I bet, yeah.
Absolutely.
So anyway.
Appreciate the presentation.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time and consideration to all of you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. If does anybody have we'll give one more, anybody else got a last thought on it?
Again, our goal is to bring this forward as, soon as feasible after the new year,
Okay.
because we do want to be able to make sure that the increment is there and hit it before that taxable value jumps when they're fully occupied, so
Okay.
that is the goal.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Well, then we'll look forward to seeing all that information. Thank you guys
thank
again
you.
for coming in. We
Yeah,
appreciate
appreciate
it.
Thank
Yeah.
you all.
All right, let me go back to our agenda here. Does anybody have any, I believe we're on commissioner comments, other city business? We have about 14 minutes, 13 minutes before the next meeting. So does anybody else have any city business?
I would like to have my memory refreshed of where we left things after the last meeting with the vote for the property on the River Road. And we talked about the farm market and the stakeholders and understanding what it is they wanted from that. We didn't table it, we voted, but then what will be the next step?
So I've got a meeting scheduled with the market. I don't remember the date off the top of my head, I apologize. And then the other request was if they being consumers would provide some sort of a screening on the front North River side of that property, which they've agreed to do, so.
Did we talk about the possibility of having more of a work session with the market? I don't know how others on the commission feel, but I would like to hear what they feel the barriers are to moving and how we might address those. And just want it to be more of a give and take. So I have heard some comments from the last meeting, and I feel badly about the way things went, and I think I expressed that at that meeting also. For the market to hear from Mitch Hotz would not be the way we would want to do things, but.
Not how they heard.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously.
I'm just saying what was told to
Right.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
so
fine.
Mitch did a story, and so I'm sure he reached out to somebody immediately. After the meeting, I sent an email requesting a meeting to discuss moving the market. We just we weren't able to have that meeting before Mitch talked to somebody and did a story, so I
Right. We
apologize
had a
for that, but I can't
conversation
control Mitch. Right?
Before, really hearing from them. So now we're moving forward, but I would, maybe it's just me that wants to hear from them also, but I'm suggesting we have the conversation with them in a larger group so we really understand what we need to do to find a compromise.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a meeting with them. I'll absolutely see if we can find a day when at least a representative or all of the board can make it to a work session.
Okay.
It's fine by me.
Yeah, because some of the things I heard seemed reasonable, but I think we all want to hear them, and I'm sure you want to hear them. and,
Sure.
Okay, so I was just trying to refresh my memory on where we left things. And where is that situation with consumers? We thought there was a deadline coming up, that we had to vote and make a decision.
Yeah, that we've got a signed agreement, and
Okay.
they've offered to provide that screening.
Okay, thank you.
I have a when will we see the proposed change from staff regarding the updated flag ordinance? So that we're not adjudicating which flags are appropriate to display within the city. Because we don't do that, but I don't want us even having a municipal code implying that we do that. This is from like 2 or 3 months ago.
I think that's you.
Staff me?
Yeah, yeah. I think so.
Well, let me say this. Right, I don't think I had any further questions. I'll make an effort to get it on the next agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions or for the city business?
I have a comment. I have a question and a comment. I wanted to know, are we still planning to release a press release regarding the animal abuse issue? Because I did see that. You going to do that? Or, because I know
I
there was
issued
the
a statement.
statement, I saw the
Yeah.
statement, but
Yeah.
is the press release ensuing as well?
That
'Cause I-
was the statement in the press release.
Okay.
Right.
I just have a suggestion regarding that, and it's based on years and years and years and years of media relations experience. It's not going to go away. The problem solvers are there at the television station are there to solve the problems. And I think that our statement needs to address the issue that the media raised too, because it's not just the community, the media is now involved. And the reporter very explicitly talked about the temperature clause of our ordinance and how we were lacking it. And we need to address that. We need to say what our ordinance states and that we do have the 32 degrees or whatever it is as a temperature, cut off in terms of that, because that is going to come back again. So I just want to say that.
Okay.
It was in the statement, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't.
Not that specific. What the media had
It's in-
said is we did not adopt the county's best practices, which we did in 2023. They're actually updated again with stronger language in May of '25,
Yeah.
which addressed the temperature. I didn't say that specifically in the statement. You know, when you're making these statements, you got to decide how much information do you include, because the first one I had was about probably 5 times longer than the one I actually released.
You don't
so-
want to be lengthy, but
Right,
you want to
right.
be concise.
So,
You
yeah.
want to be, you just want to hit it on the head so that they don't come back, because that's what happens, because it was a little vague. That's all
Yeah.
I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Anybody else have any city business? All right. Anybody have any commissioner comment? All right. Well, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn the work session, and then we will.
To adjourn the work session. Support.
All those in favor to adjourn the work session?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Work session adjourned, and we will meet back in 7 minutes for the regular meeting.
Do you know if they took pictures of the stuff that they found while they were digging up for that building?
I do not. Do you know that?
You know what?
Do you know if they took pictures and found
That
stuff?
I don't know.
We can ask.